Heroes of the Storm wants you to fight, as much and as often as possible. The power scaling in this game ensures that throughout a match, players will be on relatively equal terms, but as you get better, so will your opponents, with everyone making fewer and fewer mistakes. You know, in theory. So if both teams scale at about the same rate and nobody slips up, how can one side gain an advantage? Mercenaries! The hired help of HOTS, pushing lanes and forcing trades. There are many kinds of mercenaries with many benefits, from items to vision, but for the most part, they're there to push lanes, providing passive pressure while players are otherwise engaged. This pressure can distract and divide the enemy team, forcing them to make a choice. Do they take a hasty fight and try to win before the camp does too much damage? Do they send one player away to clear the camp while the rest of the team stalls for time? Or do they concede the objective entirely, regroup, and prepare for the next one? This decision tree alone can break a squad of randoms who may not share the same priorities, or may not be communicating at all, freeing up your team to take objectives, towers, or bodies while they squabble. Okay, so when should you be taking camps? Well, like a lot of questions in HOTS, the answer is, it depends.
No,
Fuck you.
No,
That's just not
bad,
helpful.
bad answer.
I'm sorry, it does. It depends on the map, the type of camp, and what sort of leverage it can provide for your team. What, you want me to say take X camp at Y time always and be done with it? Is that good enough for you? Yes,
please.
yes,
Yep.
that'll do it.
No, think. Right.
Well, outside of bosses, the first camps of a match spawn at the 1 minute mark, and most will respawn 3 minutes after being captured. Since most of the objectives start at 3 minutes, this gives players two options. Either start taking the camp immediately at the 1 minute mark, ensuring you maximize the amount of camps and experience gained from them over the course of a match. Alternatively, time the camp so that it's pushing the lane while both teams fight over the objective. This requires a little planning ahead, which I know is difficult, but if you give yourself enough time, you can capture the camp and still be at the objective when it starts or shortly thereafter. As the match progresses, more discernment is needed because the slight variation to objective timers and the overall state of the map influences optimal play. So let's say you found yourself in the middle of a match with a few free moments in which you can take a camp. Capturing camps on cooldown is better than not touching them at all. You will always earn experience, they can still draw attention, and can do a lot of damage if escorted. Still, there's a few things you should ask yourself before marching over to mingle with mercenaries. Firstly, why? Why am I taking this camp? You should have a reason. Because it's fun? I guess that's a reason. How about this? Am I needed elsewhere? Depending on your hero and the type of mercenary, you may not be able to capture the camp quickly. Time spent chipping away at health bars could be spent soaking an empty lane, defending an aggressive push, ganking heroes, pushing towers, or even invading camps on the other side of the map. A related question is, will I need help for this camp? I know you're a very good player with a lot of damage and you're super strong and skilled, but you shouldn't be incensed if your friends show up to help you take the camp. Time is a valuable commodity in HOTS and you can save a lot of it, plus some mana if multiple people are beating up the mercs at the same time. Next, am I in danger? People are ready and waiting to benefit from your hard work. Keep an eye on the minimap and know how to count to 5. If the other team hasn't shown up in a while, expect trouble. And finally, will this camp generate value? When they get to the lane, will the mercs be cleared immediately? If so, what's the point? This isn't the sum. Save your soldiers so they can strike at the opportune moment. As a general rule, camp pushes should be as inconvenient to deal with as possible. Mercenaries can also be used defensively. If your team cannot contest an objective, quickly capturing a camp can provide counterpressure, even clearing the hostile wave on its own, giving your team time to group up and deal with the most aggressive push. Be quick though, as once the objective spawns, mercenaries disappear unless you're on Infernal Shrines. With all that out of the way, let's get into the camps themselves. Siege Giants are the most common mercenary camp in the game. With long-range area damage attacks, taking this camp is effectively adding 2 catapults to the lane. Needless to say, unchecked Siege Giants can clear minion waves and knock down structures with impunity, though they are fairly unthreatening to heroes. Their attacks are slow, a great camp for practicing stutter stepping, as even the slightest bit of awareness means you can dodge every single one of their attacks. Every single one. The Impaler camps are the siege camps on Diablo-themed maps. Like the Siege Giants, their attacks outrange enemy structures. Unlike Siege Giants, these attacks are not dodgeable, and do no area damage. While this is less efficient for clearing minion waves, the trade-off is a higher overall DPS, especially later on in the match. This camp has also snuck its way into Volskaya Foundry, albeit wearing human skin. Hellbats are tanky frontline fighters on StarCraft maps, with a cleaving attack that burns away armor. Proper positioning is necessary to avoid this debuff, which stacks, increasing the affected target's damage taken by up to 20%. Owie. This affects minions and structures, meaning Hellbats will melt anything that gets in their way, as well as increasing the effectiveness of any supporting minions or heroes. The Knoll camps on Alterac Pass operate in the same way with a few tweaks, one being an extra body, and the second being the fastest respawning mercenary camp in the game, besides vision camps, but those are special, we'll get there. Sapper camps are the siege camps on Towers of Doom. Like the Giants, they have a dodgeable area of effect attack, though it's much faster and with a shorter range. This camp does a fantastic job at clearing minions, but its true power lies in its self-deleting charge attack, which deals immense damage to structures. When charging, this camp is removed from the tower's attack table, meaning the only way to stop them is through hero abilities like stuns or murder. Additionally, if these mercs make it to the enemy team's end zone, they will launch themselves at the core, dealing 1 damage per pumpkin. Unlike other siege camps, sappers have a 2.5-minute respawn timer. The final camp in the siege camp category is the Sentinel camp on Hanamura. It's not a boss, don't yell at me, it just acts like one. This camp is so powerful, it's considered the true objective of the map. It has high base attack damage and a cleave ability on an 8-second cooldown that instantly clears minions and deals heavy damage to heroes. The Samurai absolutely chews through a lane. It cannot, no, it must not be ignored. Like the Sappers, it has a 2-minute 30-second respawn timer. Bruiser camps are bulky mercenaries that take much longer to capture or clear. While they have less potential for damage than siege camps, they usually provide some sort of bonus or buff to go along with their high health pools. All bruiser camps have a 1-minute spawn and 4-minute respawn timers. Knights are the most common bruiser camp in the game, consisting of 3 beefy brawlers and 1 scrawny shooter. This camp adds some much needed survivability to a minion wave. While the knights have hit points to spare, the wizard provides 20 spell armor in an area around itself. This spell damage reduction aura applies to any friendly entities in range, but not buildings, giving players a reason to push with this camp, as well as needing more firepower to clear it. Goliath camps are Goliath camps are the glass cannons of bruisers, with a high DPS ranged attack that does not outrange structures, and a Raven drone that fires seeker missiles and has true sight instead of spell armor. The Raven reveals a large area around itself, making ambushes difficult. As well, the seeker missile it fires does outrange enemy towers, and will lock on and chase enemy heroes for an uncomfortable amount of time. The tracked player will be revealed for as long as the missile is active. The strongest non-boss camp in the game are arguably the Fallen Shaman camps on the Diablo maps. This camp generally takes 2 or more heroes to take, as its high health and damage makes squishier heroes fuck. This camp generally takes 2 or more heroes to take, as its high health and damage puts squishier heroes in danger. The strength of this camp is twofold. Firstly, both the shaman and the dogs deal double damage to non-hero targets, enabling this camp to chew through undefended waves. Secondly, this is the only camp in the game that pushes waves that replenishes lost hit points. So long as the shaman lives, it will resummon its dogs once they are destroyed. Due to its short range, towers will eventually crunch through this camp. But until then, because of its respawning dogs, minion waves tend to stack with this camp, becoming small armies that can overwhelm enemy structures. The shaman camp is a fantastic camp to take when you're on the back foot, as the respawning dogs can tank incredible amounts of damage, even beating catapults. Bonus and reward camps won't push a lane when captured, typically dropping items that can be picked up and placed by heroes. These items can be quite impactful when used at the right moment. Yeah, they're not as fun or exciting as other camps. If nothing else, you can capture them for the experience points. Fortification camps on Volskaya and Hanamura drop a turret when destroyed. This consumable can be used in a myriad of ways, from holding a point to drawing aggro from towers and forts, or even just some extra damage. The turret can last for 45 seconds and will prioritize attacking any hero that enters its range. If you're feeling cheeky, you can also use the turret to body block people. The support camp on Volskaya also drops an item. The healing emitter replenishes 40% of a player's health and mana over 10 seconds or for as long as the healing emitter lasts. This is as much health and more mana than a healing fountain to every player in range over half the time. That's a lot of healing, though the emitter is pretty easy to knock over. The emitter is useful for topping up a team before a fight or dropped mid-battle for an extra bit of sustain. The recon camps in Hanamura provide vision when taken. Not true sight, just plain old regular-ass boring vision, which is still very useful. These camps don't have a respawn timer and can be immediately recaptured once taken by the opposite team. These camps tend to change hands quickly, as they give quite a lot of experience and you need every scrap of XP you can get on Hanamura because the map sucks. Honorable mention to the skeletal pirates on Blackheart's Bay. These bony boys can be knocked over by a stiff breeze, and like all camps on Blackheart's Bay, drop 2 coins and a regen globe when captured. Well, those were all fine and dandy, but now we're moving on up to the big leagues. Boss camps are hard, dangerous camps, with tons of hit points and damage that usually take an entire team to capture. They are a major point of contention, as taking them is risky and time-consuming. Many a game will be won or lost on the choice to fight a boss camp. In general, you want to have an obvious advantage before taking one on, be that a numerical advantage, a talent tier, or total map control. The Grave Golem is a tanky boss with 2 high damage abilities. A large, self-cast stun with a 3-second windup, and a root it attempts to cast underneath the feet of hostile heroes. The stun deals double damage to non-hero targets, lasts 2 seconds, and has a 10-second cooldown. The root will hold you still for 3 seconds while dealing heavy damage over time. While the boss cannot use these abilities simultaneously, it is possible to be rooted into the stun, which is 5 seconds of crowd control, but worse, it's embarrassing. If you get hit by this combo, everyone will point and laugh at you. The Sand Golem is a reskinned Grave Golem with the root replaced by pushy tornadoes. The tornadoes are annoying, dealing low damage and interrupting player pathing. The Ice Giant is similar to the previous bosses in terms of behavior, has a few stat tweaks, and the root or tornadoes replaced by snowballs that cut player movement speed by half. Compared to other bosses, the Archangel of Brax's Hollow is a glass cannon, capable of dishing out incredible damage at range. Bulletstorm is a spicy rectangle on a 16.5-second cooldown that you really don't want to spend much time in, and while you're dealing with that and the boss's auto attacks, keep your eyes open for mortars, which are fast-moving projectiles that target heroes. This boss is in the center of Brax's holdout, and when captured, will push the least damaged lane. The Headless Horseman is the boss on Towers of Doom. Instead of pushing lanes, when captured, this boss will deal 4 damage to the enemy team's core, regardless of how many structures are currently under your control. His low health pool makes him fairly quick to tank, and while he can threaten heroes, does not do a lot of damage, though most of it is AoE, with a cleaving auto attack and a stinky skull pool. And last but not least, we have the slime boss of Warhead Junction. What it lacks in crowd control, it makes up for in heavy damage across a wide area, spitting out pools of slime that are gross, and launching little slime pods that apply damage over time to any hero who can't dodge. Mercenaries are a useful and effective tool for shifting the balance of power in a match. Offensive camps put the opposing team on a timer, placing them in the uncomfortable position where they're forced to choose between winning the teamfight or sacrificing their structures. Defensively, mercenaries can provide space for your team, freeing up players to defend important locations. You will rarely play a game of heroes without interacting with camps, because on top of all of their benefits, they also provide healing globes and experience points, which are useful for snowballing a lead or catching up from behind. While each camp is different and timings can change depending on the map, knowing when and why to capture mercenaries can have an outsized effect on the outcome of a match. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and push all the other engagement buttons. I've had quite the bump in subscribers and views as of late, and that's all your fault. You did this. Thanks, thank you. I've even been able to afford an extra can of beans this month. But seriously, things are going well and it's all thanks to you. If you like my stuff and want to see the channel grow, consider becoming a channel member on YouTube or a patron on Patreon. Or watch all of my videos 5 times. Yes. As for other projects, if you want to play Heroes, I got a Discord server with links all over the channel, and I stream on Saturday mornings, just for funsies. Could be Heroes, could be other games, whatever strikes my fancy. That's it, that's the end of the video. No more shilling. Get out of here, leave, goodbye!